Hey, BeatBuddy users, Municipal Man of Mystery here, with an addendum to our series on creating beats for your BeatBuddy. Some of you online have asked questions about using Garageband to create beats, and in my first video, I very cavalierly mentioned that you could use Garageband, and yes, of course, you can use Garageband to create MIDI files and manipulate them. There is one pretty major caveat to that statement, and that is that uh, with GarageBand, you cannot export MIDI files out of the application and save them elsewhere. And this, of course, is a major limitation for our purposes because we need to export those MIDI files that we create and open them up in the BeatBuddy Manager. There is, however, a workaround, and that's what this video is dedicated to for those of you who are using GarageBand. It's to show you how to get around this problem, and I managed to work something out online, and it revolves around this app, which is called GB to MIDI. So GarageBand to MIDI. And this was created by an angelic good Samaritan of one sort who solved this problem for us. So if you ever run into a guy named Lars on the street, give him $10, you owe him. So this app is to convert a type of file to MIDI that we're going to use later. So you don't have to download that now. Wait till the end of the video to decide if you want to get into this. But just put a pin in that because we're going to come back to that application in a minute. So let's open GarageBand, and I'll walk you through the steps. It's a little convoluted, but it can be done. So we're going to open a new project in GarageBand. It's going to ask us to open a track. Don't choose the drummer track. That is for automated drumming, which is a very handy feature of Logic and GarageBand. But for this purpose, we're going to use a software track. All right, let's assign a drum kit because that's what we're doing. Let's close off these other things we don't need. And I'm going to close down this window because it's going to get crowded in a minute. All right, let's open a MIDI file in this track, and we'll just choose one of the ones we used from our song Thor. Okay, let's take the word, this one here, and I'm just going to put it there in GarageBand. It's going to ask me about the tempo information. I want to import that. Okay, so there it is. Let's move it up to the front. Okay, so let's say you have created or you have manipulated some MIDI notes here, and now you want to save it for your BeatBuddy Manager. The way to do that first is to go to File, go to this feature down at the bottom, Add Region to Loop Library. And that's where it's going to save it, in your loop library. And a dialog window will open up. We're going to give this a unique name as usual, and we'll call this Thor Fill 2. Okay. This stuff is designators for searches, I assume. We don't need it, so let's just hit choose, and you'll notice it goes through the export process there. So now we have to go find where it has saved this, and you're going to open up a Finder window and go to your your library files. Okay, and then go to Audio. You'll see something called Apple Loops. Follow the folders until you get to the end. Okay. Now here it is. You'll notice I created one earlier. But you'll notice it's saving these as AIF files. And what we want to do is convert them to MIDI, and that is where our app that we downloaded online comes in. Let's go to our GB to MIDI app. We're going to hit Run. Now it's going to ask us which files we want to convert. And I was in here earlier, so it went directly to this, but you may have to go through your Finder and locate them. Here's the AIF we just saved. And we hit choose. And yeah, sure. And here it is. So there's our Thor fill2.mid, and that's what we want to open up in our Beat Buddy Manager. So let's do that and make sure it works. Okay, now what you want to do is take that MIDI file and move it to our Beat Buddy workspace files. So I'm just going to do that. And there it is. So now we're going to open up this fill in Beat Buddy Manager just to make sure that it works. Okay, let's put it in the fill space because it is a fill. And we'll choose Thor fill 2. Hit open. There it is. And you can again test it by just hitting this icon here. And that seems okay. All right, now that we've dealt with the critical issue of how to export out of Garageband and to retrieve the file to use in Beat Buddy Manager, let's look at a couple of other features of Garageband if you're using it. So Garageband is really a user-friendly or stripped-down version of Logic Pro X. It doesn't have a lot of the pro features that some of the professional softwares will offer, but it's certainly a good application and it's free, so you really can't beat it. It's really designed for musicians to record on the fly. You can even use it on your iPad. So it certainly has a lot of great usability. But for our purposes, there are a couple of things that I would consider to be inconveniences. When you're doing beats, workflow is important because there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of detailed manipulations. Anything you can do to save time and frustration is really worth it. So GarageBand puts a couple of barriers in front of that. Let's open up our editor and look at the beat we've been working on. The first thing that comes to mind is the zoom feature. It has a lateral zoom this way, but it doesn't have the vertical zoom. So you can't expand the size of the notes vertically, which is a nice feature if you're doing some very detailed parsing of notes. You could add a zoom to your screen and go in like that, which helps. But nonetheless, it's certainly not critical. You can still work with it. Another issue is dealing with velocity. So if I highlight a note, the velocity slider shows up just like it does in Logic. But you'll notice as I toggle it, the color doesn't change. Logic allows you to add color gradations, and so you get that visual representation of where your velocities are set, which is a nice convenience to your workflow. You will notice if you zoom in here, there is a bar that fills in the MIDI note. So as I slide it back and forth, the bar will fill it in. So that's one visualization you can use. Another one is to use automations. Automations are this icon in Logic and GarageBand. And automations allow you to set very specific parameters on all sorts of things that are on your track, whether it's reverb or compression or panning or something like that. And in this case, we're using the note velocity automations. And it does make manipulating notes very simple. You can just grab this slider and go up and down, and you'll see the numeric representation above. And you can get that visualization of your velocity on a fill or a beat or something like that. So it does have a workaround, and GarageBand is certainly a useful way to create beats. I'm certainly not criticizing it in any way. So if GarageBand is what you have, you can use it. You may find you want to upgrade at some point or try out some other software options, but I'll leave that up to you. I hope that helps. I just wanted to add that to our process. And if you have questions, please find me online. Take care.